What is up, agents? This is Wrecker, back with another build video. Now this one is a real special one because this is the most fun I have had when running a crowd control slash debuffer or team DPS setup. So basically this build we are actively doing crowd control by locking down entire rooms with status effects. Then we are also debuffing enemies by putting them on several different debuffs, which is going to make them take more damage and affect their movement speeds at the same time. And lastly, we're boosting the DPS for the entire group for a huge 105% weapon damage. That's amplified and additive weapon damage all at once. And on the top, we have 6 skill tiers with having an opportunity to get overcharge every 90 seconds. So yeah, I can assure you this is a really fun build to run, especially in legendary because you have tankier enemies in there. So yeah, with that being said, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and now let's get into the big breakdown. Okay, so starting off with the specialization, we are running the survivalist spec here. Now this is really important. Do not run any other spec with this setup because our main goal is to do crowd control with status specs, okay? And this is the best spec to run for that because it does give you different perks that benefit you and your team by putting enemies on status effect. So we're talking 10% additional damage to your whole team on status affected enemies. We are getting an armor kit which can heal your teammates within 20 meters. That's a huge range. And also we are getting the incendiary grenade, okay? That's very useful, especially with the weapon that we are running. It's gonna come in really handy. So I would highly recommend running the survivalist spec, especially with this build, okay? Okay, so starting off with the weapons, we are primarily running the lefty shotgun. That's the name shotgun that came out recently, I suppose. The attributes doesn't really matter because our focus isn't to kill enemies ourselves, but to put them on status effects and do crowd control. So the main reason we are running this named shotgun here is the talent it comes with. It's called Perfect Sledgehammer. Dealing damage with a grenade applies a mark on the target. Targets with a mark will take 40% more damage to armor and have a negative 30% movement speed. So that's a huge buff for your teammates, but also a debuff to the enemy at the same time. So it does last for 10 seconds. That's a huge amount. So what I do personally is that whenever you enter a room, see a group of enemies, just toss a grenade, incendiary in this case, and that's gonna cover all the enemies in this range. And presently I believe after the sharpshooter spec grenade, this has the largest radius that as per my testing. But anyways, that's gonna boost the damage those enemies are taking by 40%. That's a huge chunk. So I would highly recommend running this shotgun for this perfect talent here, okay? For the secondary, I am running my Scorpio because again, this is very important as well. We are gonna put enemies on as much status effects as possible, as you will see in the gameplay. So whatever you can, fire, poison, disorient, shock, foam, anything that applies status effects will be helpful for us, okay, for this setup. So that's the reason I'm running Scorpio as my secondary. So because as soon as I put enemies on Sledgehammer with my primary shotgun, I switch right to my Scorpio to put them on even more status effects. So that's the game here, okay? So these are the two weapons we are running on this setup. For the sidearm, this is very important as well because I'm running the TDI card custom. The only reason being is not because of the skill tier, because yes, if we are holding this weapon, we are sitting at skill tier 6. But the most important reason I am running this sidearm is because of the talent I did get it with. It's called Future Perfect. So that basically means if I get a kill with this pistol, again, my goal is not to kill enemies, but if I can, let's say a low bar enemy, I can get instant overcharge for my skills because of the talent I have on this pistol. But luckily I got this talent on this named TDI card custom, so that's the best of both worlds. I'm getting the skill tier and the talent itself, but it's not really important, okay? You can run this talent on any pistol and it should work the same. So yeah, that's the sidearm we're running. Okay, so starting off with the gear pieces, we are running 4-piece ongoing directive. Reason being the same thing we are running with this entire setup is status effects. This is the only gear set that's gonna boost the teammates' damage and your damage with the status affected enemies, right? So that's the goal here. So we're getting 15% status effects, 30% reload speed, that's really handy. And then we're getting the 4-piece main talent for the gear set. It's called Rules of Engagement. So basically, it's gonna put enemies on bleed with the ammo if you kill an enemy with the status effects already on it. Okay. Now, since we are putting enemies on status effects, getting this hollow point ammo isn't gonna be a problem. You will get them instantly. So what that gives you is that it's gonna boost the damage for you and your teammates by 20%, because your magazines will be loaded with this bleed ammo. So that's what we're getting with the gear set. And for the attributes, we are running skill tier, status effects, and skill haste all over the build, because that's basically the goal here, to get our skills back as fast as possible and put our durations for the status effects as long as possible. Okay, so these are the minor attributes I would highly recommend running all over the gear pieces. Okay, but yes, this is really important. Okay, you're gonna have to farm for certain pieces for this gear set which already has status effects on it as a minor attribute, because only then you will be able to re-roll that core attribute to a yellow, because by default it always drops with a weapon damage core. So yeah, you're gonna have to, but that it's not that difficult. You can just go to countdown and do a few runs and you should have these pieces in no time. So yeah, that's what we're running here. Now same exact thing for the other 3 pieces for the gear set. For the gloves, we are running skill tier and status effects. Same thing for the knee pads, we are running skill tier and status effects. And lastly, same thing for the holster, status effects, and skill tier. Okay, so for the chest piece, now this is the star of the show, okay? This is basically a new chest piece that came out with season 2 quite recently, and this is the key here. Okay, it's called the collector chest piece. It's an exotic chest piece. Okay, it's very easy to get. You can get it from the season track, or you can farm for it if you already have the blueprint, but you should have it already because it was included in the season track, as I mentioned earlier. For the attributes, we can't really help with it because it does drop with all reds. We don't really need reds, but this is what we have. So for the mod slot, I'm running skill haste as normal, but the talent that it comes with, that's gonna help out with our crowd control setup here even more, because giving more grenades, more radius, more damage for the grenades, and we will be tossing out grenades most of the time because of the sledgehammer talent. So that way we could boost our teammates and also debuff our enemies at the same time. So that's really important. Okay, so we're getting +3 grenades here, plus 50% radius, plus 35% grenade damage here, and 25% grenade damage to extra enemy caught in the blast. So the important thing about this one is that with all these perks, we are also getting grenades back every 30 seconds if you're down to 2 grenades, okay, 2 or less. So that's really handy. Okay, so if you are running out of grenades, just stay there in the cover and you will be getting another grenade every 30 seconds. So that's really handy. You won't be running out of grenades. It's just that simple. So yeah, this is the chest piece we are running in the setup. Okay, so for the last piece on this setup, we are running the setup backpack from Uzina Gatica. Now this is a really important piece as well, okay, because you are gonna have to farm for it with specific attributes like 2 yellows. Preferably I would have status effects and skill haste on the minor ones, but this is what I have so far. But skill damage isn't bad either, because we are running some skills that can output damage as well, so it's fine either way. But you have to make sure you have 2 yellows, status effects and skill haste or skill damage, and that way you can re-roll your core attribute to a skill tier. Again, it always drops with an armor core, so go out there, farm for it, or maybe craft it. Speaking of that, I did put a video earlier, I believe a day ago, about crafting this backpack that you can presently in the game. It's dropping blueprints from control points, so check out my last video if you want to know what I'm talking about, if you don't know that already. But you can basically craft this backpack as many as you want. But anyhow, getting back to the build, the main reason why we're running this backpack is because of the talent that it comes with. It's called Perfectly Opportunistic. Enemies you hit take 15% more damage from all sources for 5 seconds. Now it doesn't have a cooldown, it keeps refreshing, so as long as you're hitting your enemies with a shotgun, which we will since we are running 2 shotguns back to back, it is gonna debuff those enemies, okay? Because your teammates are now getting 15% more damage to those enemies they're getting hit with, right? So this is very important, okay? As you will see in the gameplay, the only time I'm not shooting with my shotguns is if I'm tossing a grenade, okay? But that only happens once or twice every other often, so simply toss a grenade, put them on fire, and start shooting them with your shotgun. So not only you're getting the sledgehammer buff here, you're also getting opportunistic at the same time. So that's a huge chunk of damage boost to your teammates, but a debuff to the enemies at the same time. So that's crazy good, okay? So that is basically the reason we are running this backpack. So yeah. Okay, for the skills, primarily I'm running my shock trap. Now I would highly recommend running this because it can help you lock down a huge group of enemies in one place, as it does have a decent amount of duration and you can actually get it back as fast as possible if you deconstruct it before it goes out, just like a hive. So is it very important, okay? Because since we are sitting at 5 skill tiers and 6 skill tiers with a pistol, it's fully stacked up, plus 8 traps, 50% radius and duration. So this is really important. I would highly recommend running this. We are running 5% duration and 7.5% shock radius on the mods here. Now the second skill, that's really personal preference. For me personally, I run the jammer pulse just because you can just enter a room and mock the entire room with the jammer pulse all at once, and now they're on status effects, okay? So when you kill those enemies, your whole team and you are gonna get hollow point ammo. So that's the goal here. That's the main reason I'm running the jammer, but it is entirely up to you, okay? You can run any other skill that you prefer, maybe a sticky or like a blind or firefly. Anything works because we do have a decent amount of skill tiers, so any skill is viable at this point. As long as we're trying to crowd control and putting status effects on enemies, anything works. So but for me, we are running the jammer pulse. I'm running 10% radius and 10% effect duration here. Okay, so this is the full build, everyone. We are running the survivalist specialization. For the primary, I'm running the lefty. It comes with perfect sledgehammer. For the secondary, I'm running my Scorpio, the exotic shotgun. For the sidearm, I'm running my TDI card custom, as I explained earlier, not only for the skill tier but also the future perfect talent for the overcharge. For the gear pieces, we are running 4-piece ongoing directive, but keep in mind all of them 4 pieces need to be with skill tier as a core attribute, okay? So you're gonna have to farm for them and get these exact pieces. For the backpack, we are running the named Ozina Getica backpack. It's called the setup. It comes with perfectly opportunistic, so that's really important to boost your teammates and debuff enemies. And lastly, we are running the exotic chest, the collector. That's gonna boost up the damage, the duration, and the amount of grenades that you have on this build. So that's really handy, okay? And not only that, it's gonna keep regenerating grenades for you. So that's always a good thing, especially if you're trying to run a grenade specific status, I would say, because we are running sledgehammer. But yeah, this is what we're running. For the skills, we are running the shock trap and also the jammer pulse in my case, but you can run whatever you prefer, okay? As long as we're putting enemies on status effects. So yeah, this is the full build, everyone. So let me know what you guys think. Run this build. It's very fun, I'll be honest with you. It's actually better than running the incinerator gear set or maybe eclipse, because then you're only solely focused on using your skills. But with this one, you don't have to focus on that. I just throw out my shock trap and do a jammer pulse. That's about it. And afterwards, I'm just tossing grenades, putting enemies on fire, and shooting with my shotgun to put them on debuffs. Okay, so it's a really fun way to do crowd control is what I'm saying here. So let me know what you guys think about it, okay? Enjoy the gameplay, and I will catch you guys in the next one. See ya.